Hello, my name's Tyler, KB0PQP. So here's a little bit about me. I'm a public safety radio technician. I maintain a multi-site trunked radio system. We have about 600 plus radios on the system. That includes police, fire, EMS, hospitals, EM, etc. Maintain about 5 amateur radio repeaters and a couple APRS, iGates, and Digis. In the middle of building a comms trailer capable of 1.8 to 800 megahertz. It can be powered by solar or a generator. I'm also a COM LT, AuxCT, ITS-LT, and the technology officer for AuxComm USA, which you're here to hear about tonight. Um, so first of all, ITDRC is a great organization. You'll hear me talk about them more throughout this presentation, but they've established a very good working model combining professionals and amateurs to form a top-notch disaster response corps. They're kind of a shining beacon as far as volunteer disaster response. Um, so let's get on to AuxComm. What is AuxComm USA? AuxComm USA is a 501c3 nonprofit. We organized and incorporated in the state of Kansas in June of this year. So this is very new. Our mission is to provide emergency communications and emergency communication support for communities during emergencies and disasters, and to facilitate training for such incidents. Training is a big part of our mission. We have a big bottleneck in the response world here, and especially on the COMU side of getting people trained and actually certified through filling out a position task book. And we're going to try to hopefully alleviate some of that. We also want to be a ready, available resource to fill in needs across the nation, COMU-wise. We've got so many people that are in roles like I am that have this training but don't really have a place to go learn, to go and practice what we've learned, and there's no apprenticeship type program. So we're trying to do something like that so that there's a ladder to climb. And how are we a little different? We aren't looking to compete with anybody else's organizations. We'd really like to partner with them. We also don't want to wait for all else to fail. We've got skills and assets that can help emergency response across the country, um, even when primary networks are working. So we've got people that are trained, and some of them do this in their professional life. Some of them are amateurs. It's the whole spectrum here, and we're trying to top up, bottom down approach where we're going to work with the government level, CISA, FEMA, states, TWICs, and then kind of the bottom up to where we meet in the middle, where we work with the local partners. Um, we want to train and do what we do every day. We want to, just like the military says, train like you fight, and we want to avoid mission creep. So we don't want to try to do everything. We want to try this narrow focus of helping the training aspects and providing a ready reserve for the COMU force across this country. How AuxComm is now how it fits into NIMS here into the incident command system, incident management system. We've got logs, COML, and the AuxComm. Again, we can fit right into that role. We're following all of the FEMA guidance to a T, and we're trying to establish something here very similar to what ITDRC does, but on the COM side instead of just the IT side. So the way we're envisioning this is a professional organization of volunteers, to where something similar to we're a lot of AuxCommers here in this group, and we envision it something like the ARRL, where it is the professional organization for AuxComm, with a secondary role, a primary role of training and providing response, as well as networking and getting people together, getting people in the same room, getting people in the same meetings, so that we learn everybody's names and we're able to know who we're working with and what resources are out there, because I think that's huge. That's one of the big things in all of these FEMA classes that gets pushed real heavily is the networking. And like it says here, AuxComm USA is a true commitment of time and resources. This isn't just something you join and forget about. This is an organization where we're going to try to get out and get stuff done. Right now, this is what we're looking at. Again, we're very new. Kind of our geographic organization chart here. So we'll have regional coordinators, and we have a couple of people that are already in those roles, and they're going to be split up in the already established FEMA regions, and they'll coordinate with FEMA and CISA and the agencies that encompass the whole region. And then we're looking for state coordinators, which will work with the SWICs and the emergency management agencies at the state level. And then we're looking at the area coordinator, which coordinates at a local city, county, tribal emergency management agency or comms group, or this could be. This is pretty open-ended the way this works. This is not set in stone that we're only going to work with these agencies at these levels. So that's our generalized layout at this time. And again, here's kind of our training levels as we've got them envisioned at this point. And we're going to start out at level 4 to level 1 on the EMCOM, and we'll start people out probably. We want to have a way that you can walk in without anything and build up. So we'll start out with Zello, FRS, CD, MERS, that kind of thing, and we're going to require the basic intro ICS, IS classes, and an OPSEC class, which we feel is pretty important. And again, these are the standard FEMA training classes, as well as a DoD OPSEC course. And we'll move up. So EMCOM 3, we envision a GMRS license, and of course the same things that we had layer before, the intro to ICS and the OPSEC. And then EMCOM 2 is where an amateur radio license will be required, and that is a technician license, and again, same thing. And then EMCOM 1, a general class license, and covers HF. And then we're also looking to credential the following resource types, and that is internal, so that we can try to help them better themselves and fill out these PTBs, because these task books, we've got a big backlog of task books here in the middle of the country, and we've had really hard time of connecting people with opportunities to go out and do these training exercises, and even come to an event or something to learn. We're having a hard time with that. There's a real disconnect there, and so that's what we're looking at here, is trying to get we're looking at AuxComm, CommL, CommT, and ITSL, and we'll probably incorporate some other ones down the road. But the main goal there is to be the ready reserve force, as well as try to get these PTBs completed, because it's been such a difficult process in a lot of respects. So our credentialing system is based on the FEMA training process. AuxComm, CommL, CommT, ITSL, ICS, etc. That's what we would put on our, in our internal database of members. And we'll probably build out some in-house training to kind of supplement this a little bit as needed, supplement the FEMA side as needed. And that could be anything from, field expedient antennas to connectors to, how to organize a Go kit, stuff like that. And then kind of the fun part of how we're envisioning our little different approach to how we do the technology side of a response. We want to provide communications, and we don't care. We're not purist. It doesn't have to be amateur radio. You don't have to set up an HF station. If you can make a phone call and get that piece of information across, it's very important that you do it quickly and get that information across by whatever means is necessary. We're communications assets, and we need to communicate, and we don't care. As I said, the person on the other end, if this is a disaster scene and say you've got search and rescue on scene and they're rescuing somebody, and the comms that were done help that process, they don't care if it was via HF, VHF, UHF, smoke signals, carrier pigeon, it doesn't matter. The goal is to communicate. and to form a group of effective communicators and share the skills. We've got people across different age ranges. We've got people that have seen it all. We've got people that are very new. And these are some things that we really want to take that information from the people that have seen it all and make sure that the new people get it. Because I don't know if you've been to a lot of these classes lately. I bet most of you have. It seems like there is a big time age divide starting to come up in the commune world. We got a lot of people that are probably going to retire here soon. And we got a lot of younger people, and they come about things a little bit differently. And it's very important that this information, it continues. And it's just kind of like an apprenticeship program or a journeyman style program where we can take the information from some of our more experienced members and get it into the heads of the newer people, because that's what this is about. It's about, giving back to your community. And one way you can do that is help to train the new generation of communicators. Um, Again, this is a big thing that I'm pushing as the technology officer is we don't want to wait for all else to fail. We've got a lot of assets and resources out there, um, from from physical things like technology to individuals with the training and the knowledge. And we've got radio techs all the way to people that are really good at organization and the ICS forms and all of that. And if we can bring that skill set together and get people a bit to the bits that they need to know to do their job, it's really going to help out. So some of the ways we're coming about this differently, and this is not just us. This is things that have been pushed down on us and we've been kind of told and we've picked up from some of the classes we've been in. VoIP, IP communications is big. Um, we want to make sure that our members are able to use VoIP, ROIP, HF, VHF, UHF, LTE, SATCOM, all of these different things. We want to make sure that if we go to a deployment and there's cached equipment being used, if somebody picks up an ATX 8000 and hands it to somebody that's pretty much only used amateur radio gear, they know what they're getting into in that respect. You know, whether this equipment came from the government, a corporate reserve, or FirstNet, FEMA, NIFC, whatever. Um, this is stuff that's going to be at those scenes, and we're going to make sure that our people are ready to use it. I know there are some instances where there are some bureaucratic things of who can use what, and we get that. That's not what we're going for. We just want to make sure that they know how to use this equipment, um, and that it can be utilized properly. Um, that may be getting some of our members to FirstNet meetings. I went to one in Kansas City the other day, and we learned a lot about the system up there and some of the deployable assets they have. Um, Even if our members aren't with an agency directly allowed to use FirstNet yet, that doesn't mean in an incident that those cast resources won't show up, and they don't. They may need to know how to use them, and just to know what's out there. You know, to make the right phone calls or suggest the right phone calls. Um, Again, we can use any service. We're not limited to amateur radio by any means. That could include GMRS, MERS, FRS, CB, IPs, LO, Echolink, All-Star, telephone, whatever. We should be able to utilize anything that can pass communications, and it doesn't have to be voice. It could be data as well. um, so the other aspect that I like to look at is radio for the last mile. So most of these disasters that are out there that happen tend to be geographically limited in scope. Now there are some, especially in hurricane-prone areas and big wildfires and ice storms, or you can envision the end of the world type situations, nuclear wars, um, cyber attacks, that kind of thing. Again, high impact, low probability, still got to be ready for them. But the average disaster typically is limited in geographic size. So there are a lot of instances that I have seen, especially like the Joplin tornado, for instance, where you had the tornado go through and take out about 9,000 structures, cause just severe catastrophic damage, but it was limited to a smaller area. Comms are pretty good on the outside of that. So there isn't any reason if we have IP, we can't set up something like a 10 watt all-star radio or Echolink node on a 20-foot pole 5, 10 miles outside the area, and we've got internet backhaul. We've got wide area comms at that point. And it's a simple deployment. All we need is some data, whether it's an LTE hotspot or we just plug into somebody's Ethernet or connect to the McDonald's Wi-Fi, we can get that out. And that brings me to IP here. IP is current state of the art for comms. We're using it right now. Voice and video over IP is everywhere. I have gig fiber at home. How many ROIP streams could we bring through that? How many video? How much data? That's kind of information technologies rolling out across the country. We've got fiber. We've got all this high-speed internet out there. We should utilize it if it's in place and working. Doesn't mean it will be, and we still have to be able to use other assets. LTE hotspot, Starlink, push-to-talk apps, Echolink, All-Star, WinLink, whatever. We can use any of that. And while our members may not, it's impossible to train somebody all the intricate details about all of this stuff. If we can get enough information out there to where they know the generalized idea of how this stuff works, and we get some people that are strong on certain parts and weak on the other, if we can get the people together to a response, if it's a multi-person response, we can put together the right people to do the job. And I think that's big. HF is great. We love HF as hams. I use it all the time. I love making contacts. I love chasing DX. In a lot of cases, it's not the right tool for the job. Here where we are in the state of Kansas, if you want to get good, reliable comms between, the southern part of the state and say Topeka or Kansas City or Wichita, you're looking at a 120-mile hop. That's pretty hard on the higher bands, especially during the day. 80 and 160 tend to work pretty good for that. But again, look at the size of the antennas that are really needed to make that work. It does have a lot of pros, and we all know those. It's beyond line of sight, point to point, no infrastructure is needed. The comms are big antennas. It's kind of hard to set some of those up at times, especially if your incident communications center, your AuxComm communication center is in a parking lot. Oh, can't put up. What are we doing? We're going to use a vertical. I mean, there's a lot of options there, but if we have other services that are, better signal to noise, clear, I'm thinking IP, VHF, UHF, radio over the last mile, that's big, and we should use that. The other big thing is, HF is pretty low bandwidth when it comes to sending data, and it takes a little longer to set up. But HF is not something we're going to forget about by any means. It's going to be with everybody. It's going to be pushed, but it's not always the right tool for the job. No one size fits all response plan exists. Plans are not equal to the solution, and we can't solve every problem. The big thing right there is we can't solve every problem. We can only fix what we can do. We really want to avoid mission creep and stay very focused as AuxComm USA. That's a really tough thing to do, especially when you're starting an open-end new organization that's trying something that's never been done before. We understand that. And we want to make sure that we stay focused and we try to fix problems instead of create problems. So in conclusion here, with the presentation part of this, AuxComm is a 501c3. We're looking to fill a void for trained emergency communicators across the country, which we've heard over and over and over that there's a big backlog of positions that need to be filled. And we've also got a ton of people that have been through these classes that don't have much of an opportunity to go out and get the position task books filled out. There may be opportunity, but finding that opportunity has been very difficult. And that's one of the big things we want to do. We want to connect people with opportunity. And like this, we want to give back. We've got so many people here that have been trained that don't have any route to deployment with agencies. So we want to make sure that if you are passionate about what you want to do and you meet the requirements, that you can go out and do this. I understand that it's a small world. We don't want to step on anybody's toes. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to help out and give back. Like you said, helping out your neighbor is the American way, and that's what we want to do. So we'll move on to questions and discussions. Thank you.
Do you participate in EMAC?
Personally, not yet. We do have a working group with some of the RECWICs, and we're moving towards that. We've got a lot of inquiries from the states and from the federal level to do that. We just aren't quite there yet. We've got to figure a few more. Like I said, we're right at the ground floor with this.
Okay, Matt, you want to come on and ask your question?
Mac, have a call sign?
From North Carolina, WU2V. I'll ask it. Okay, Matt's comment was, I think you guys need to look at what your mission is. This is not okay. AuxComm is not an agency. You will not have a mission in any state with this.
Say that one again. I guess I don't understand the question.
He says that AuxComm is not an agency, and in most states, unless you have a recognized mission in any state, they won't accept you as deployable volunteers.
Yes, we understand that. So that's why we're looking for state level coordinators to coordinate the MOUs with each different state going forward. And yeah, we do realize that we have to, we can't just show up. We have to get all the MOUs in place, and we have to do the groundwork beforehand. A lot of what we're doing is not just something we came up with as an idea. This was stuff that was pushed down from the top, ideas that we were given from FEMA, CISA, and state SWICs on how to approach this. And a place that can, kind of a clearinghouse that can offer the insurance and the training, that was huge. That's what we had heard the most that was needed. And, that's kind of where we're starting.
Okay. Is AuxComm USA recognized by the Kansas Department of Emergency Management?
Yeah, we're working on that right now. We had a meeting with the state SWIC, and we were just trying to finalize the insurance requirements to get credentialed with them. And so once we get the insurance requirements done with KDIM and with the OEC at the state level, we should be recognized with them. Like I said, ground floor.
Okay. How many members are there in AuxComm USA?
Let's see here. We just started membership this month. I think we're at 34 right now.
Okay. Are you recognized to use FirstNet as a non-government organization? How are you authorized to use FirstNet?
So I have it as my professional capacity. This is not something that we have worked with them yet on, as far as we don't have the MOU with them yet, but we are going to approach them and talk about it and see what our options are on the emergency comm side. And this will be, this has been the problem all along with a lot of this stuff, is that, you go to a state level class as an AuxComm person, they say you have to be affiliated with a local emergency agency. Well, that's great. A lot of local emergency agencies don't want to take on the liability of having an AuxComm person, especially an AuxComm person that wants to deploy outside the state. So this is where we're working with, from the top and from the bottom to try to come together and merge that in a way that we can get some break through some of these walls that we have to get through to be a professional level organization, and not just a ragtag group of people that are out here trying to do this. We're trying to build this up slowly, methodically, and in a professional manner, if that makes sense.
Okay. And Pat Owl had a comment that only state land management agencies and federal fire agencies can access NIFC cash equipment.
Yes. And that is one of those things, but when you throw up at a scene and you're deployed as an AuxComm, to that site, there is a chance that we may have to be using cast radios to communicate as radio operators. So this is where, you've got NIFC, you've got FEMA, CISA, the states, they all have caches of radios. And we may have to learn how to operate those radios being a radio at a scene. And it's important that we know the capabilities, what's there, and how to work with that equipment. And that's why I put that in there. These things are going to show up at incidents, and a lot of ham radio people, you put a APX 8000 in front of them and say, hey, go to 146.52, and they're going to have a hard time. So that's why I want to make sure that we know how to utilize the commercial radio equipment and the amateur style equipment.
Okay. And John N4KEA says that credentialing and certifications are only done by the state. So it's state by state. It's not, there are no credentials or certifications right now.
Yep. It is state by state. We can credential ourselves, as far as giving you an ID. That doesn't mean a lot unless we have an MOU with that state. And that's what we're working on, to try to have an MOU with every state. It may take some time. We may never get there. We may get there. It depends on the state leadership, but we've been well received in a few states that we've talked to so far, and working on it.
And Scott wanted to know, what is your Echo Leaf channel?
AuxComm USA, and there's a few other ones, but that's the main one that we use for the nets.
Down. Let's see.
While you're doing that, Paul, you want to come on here with your hand up?
Sure.
Yes, I was going to ask, there's a number of decapitated statements where people are saying this or that won't happen, but they got separated from the original comment. I did ask one person and he said, I think something about an MOU with FirstNet wouldn't happen, but a lot of the other comments were just like, that isn't going to happen. And since I can't see the timestamp and listen to the video, I don't know what they're talking about. If they could explain more. It was different people.
Okay, if you have a camera, please turn it on when you speak. Go ahead there, Tyler. You want to answer that?
Which one was I gonna? I thought that was I guess with the FirstNet stuff. Is that the question? I mean, yeah. I mean, it may not happen. We may not get an MOU with FirstNet directly, but if we can get an MOU with the state brings FirstNet asset down, it can be used for the entire response, which we are part of. So, it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to work some of this out. And like I said, some of the stuff I just don't know yet. I'll be straight honest with you. We are starting from the ground up with this organization, so it is going to take some time.
Okay, Scott, you got your hand up.
Hey, Tyler, Scott Reed here from California. I work actually for a state agency, and you talked about workman's comp and a lot of the liability stuff. So out here, we utilize DSW, disaster service worker.
Okay.
And which allows a lot of organizations and allows a lot of state and county government agencies to utilize volunteers when they sign them up as a DSW.
Okay. Is that through the state, or is that like a insurance provider?
It's actually through the state. It's through the counties. I would look up. I would just do I'm not 100% familiar with it, but we deal with a lot of volunteers, and before we can bring them in, we have to swear them in as a disaster service worker, which kind of gives them some coverage per se. So I would do a little bit of research on what's known as DSWs. Okay.
And we've had some of that, and we've had other states say that we don't even want to do that. So it just depends on, I think, at the state level. Like some states, Colorado, for instance, they've got a great AuxComm program. They're basically codified into state law that everybody that deploys is, and I don't want to speak for them, but I guess they are essentially a non-paid state employee from the time of deployment until when they return home, and that gives them the coverage.
And that's kind of the same way out here.
Okay, yeah, and in Kansas, we haven't been that well received on that side of it. We want you at the scene, but we don't want to pay for anything. That's kind of what we got. But it just depends on state by state.
Okay, well, just some food for thought. Just something to look into, at least on the California side. It might give you some traction.
Yeah, I think I got it pulled up here and I will look into that afterwards because we definitely have had a hard time finding the workman's comp insurance, especially in Kansas, because we're technically exempt, but then we said we have to have it. So there's a weird government thing there.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, there's a couple more hands up. I'm gonna go back to Barry. What do you got there in chat?
Okay, from Pete in New York, he wants to know what advantage is there to joining AuxComm USA beyond what he gets for being part of his state ComU program. He's completed AuxComm, ComT, and RADO training and has participated in state ComEx exercises so far. Does CISA recognize AuxComm USA in any way? Aries and RACES programs are not recognized in ICF. So why would another new group be recognized? Can participate in any AuxComm USA activity result in getting a personal tax book signed off?
So if you've already got a functioning state AuxComm agency and AuxComm program, you don't have to join our group. The main thing we want to do is provide similar to what ITDRC does, a response, a group of people for response, but we also want to provide the networking and eventually the insurance coverage. If your state's already providing that by MOU, then you're covered. For us, we've run into the problem of not being able to get covered in a lot of states. We've run into the problem of not having. There's several states where there just hasn't been a lot of AuxComm activity yet, and we're trying to fill kind of that void, especially in the middle of the country here. It seems like you get out towards the coast and things are pretty well covered. There's a lot of money to go around. When you get into the middle here, the funding hasn't been there to do some of this stuff as much as we would like to see on a state ComU side. So that's where we would like to kind of step in and improve that relationship and improve the networking all over the country. And then as far as what were the other parts of the question? I'm sorry, it was a little multi-part question. The last two parts.
Has CISA and FEMA recognized AuxComm USA?
So not officially yet, but we have been working with them and talking with them, and we hope to get some recognition in that respect. I can't speak for them, so that's ongoing.
Okay, can you get a personal tax book signed off as a member?
Yes, that is something I'm working on. As long as your state, all the state SWICs got together, as far as I know, and had there's like a pact that they can all sign off on other people's stuff. So as soon as we're almost done with what we've got to do, and once we get that done, if you complete those activities and we witness them, yes, we can sign those off. We're not quite there yet because all of the members that we need to have their task book signed haven't got them all signed yet, because there's a big backlog in the state of Kansas here with personal task books, their position task books. We're having a real issue with that here, but hopefully we'll get caught up and we'll be able to sign those here pretty quick.
Okay, and Pat L has a good comment. It says AuxComm isn't a response entity, so there shouldn't be any responses to anything. AuxComm is a support function inside of logistics. Okay. And
yeah, but I mean, we would still be deployed to a disaster to provide logistical support. So I mean, whatever you want to call that, if we're responding or deploying or going to a scene to provide communications.
Okay, let me see, I'm going down here. What presidential award has AuxComm USA won?
Presidential Service Award, which we just recently did, and that's a pretty interesting deal there. It was about the number of hours that we have provided in the giving back to the community. They called the Presidential Service Award, and there's supposed to be an official ceremony coming up here at some point. They just haven't got that all scheduled for it.
Down here. Do members of AuxComm USA have background checks?
Yes,
and they want to know how the checks are performed.
We have a service that we use when members sign up, and that would be done through the sign up process. It's all there in the, if you want to sign up, we just run the background check and verify things, and just like you would if you joined something like ITDRC, same process. I don't handle that side. I know I can't, I'm forgetting the name of the service, but there is a volunteer background check service that we utilize.
Okay. Do you have any success stories in your state or anywhere?
Not yet. I wish we had more to give you on that. We're brand new. We've had several members that deployed to the Andover tornado, and with a CERT team, and did some communications and stuff. But again, that was with a different agency, but they were there as in an AuxComm role. But yeah, we're pretty new here, so we don't have a lot of and that's the problem we've had, is actually getting out and getting in and doing things, because we've got a lot of AuxComm people in the state, and nobody ever gets a phone call because it's just not built out in our state yet. And we want to make sure that the biggest thing that AuxComm USA wants to do is provide opportunities for people that are eager to go out and do the emergency communications role, because it feels to me like that, and this is the problem I've seen across the country, is that you can go take the training course, but there's no guarantee that you'll get to go do what you were trained to do. And I can't guarantee that, but we want to provide opportunity. We want to provide opportunity to get your task book signed off, to go and work with the agencies that we're going to support, and go to exercises and do national exercises and the things that are going to, like they always say, train like you fight. So we want to get in and build that network so that the opportunity is there. If you put in the work, you can actually utilize your training.
Great. David K. or BIR from Virginia wants to know, you've mentioned CISA, FEMA quite a lot. What is either of these agencies is AuxComm USA working with?
Yeah, we've worked with regional emergency communications working groups, the RECWICs, and we've worked with several people in the CommU side of CISA. I don't know if I'm supposed to just give names, but yes, we have worked with several people there, and we've talked to them. And Billy, WX0NET, he's kind of running the show. I'm the tech guy, but he's had several meetings, and things are fairly preliminary. So, and I don't want to give you the details of the meetings, but there has been a lot of coordination that's happened.
Okay. Let's see. Do members of your team get granted the emergency use clause in Part 97 to be able to transmit wherever they need on the spectrum to support the incident?
Only if they would be deployed in an actual life and death emergency is the way I read that clause. I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that exactly, but that would be only in a actual emergency situation, not just because you're a member of AuxComm USA. You can't just dial up a frequency to transmit.
Okay, let me see.
Well, hang on here. Let's pick up some here.
Okay.
Okay, Ken, go ahead. KJ4RUS.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dan. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you just fine, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Tyler, my question is why the name AuxComm USA when, FEMA, CISA in the States, we've already got kind of a nationwide cadre of AuxComms already out there. Some confusion to get another sort of organization that's AuxComm USA and, emergency management to work for a county. They see something or somebody hands them a web page, says, "Oh, AuxComm USA."
Sorry, you're pretty broken.
All of the people that we have trained, are nothing to do with AuxComm USA. We're actually state or FEMA certified AuxComm people. So don't you think it creates confusion by having the AuxComm USA, and it just causes confusion, I think.
Okay, I got most of that. You broke up a little bit. So it started out as a net. It started out as an AuxComm net that we did called the AuxComm USA net. And the idea is to bring all the AuxComm people together and, do networking amongst AuxCommers across the country. And that name sort of stuck. So that's kind of the idea with the name. I could see that there could be some confusion there. So far at the state level and the people we've talked to, there hasn't been a lot of confusion. If it becomes a real problem, we may look at that, but right now it hasn't been a big issue. Like I said, it started out with a net that was the way I kind of look at it. It's like you join a professional organization like the ARRL or the NRA or any of those things, and they are an organization of people they're doing a function, and that's kind of where we're at. We're just a professional organization of AuxCommers across the country.
Okay, let's pick up. Dad, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Hi.
Ty, for sharing what AuxComm USA was. Clayton actually stole my elephant in the room question about why in the world would you want AuxComm in your group's name? Unless, is everybody, is that a required course to take to participate?
So it isn't to join, but we do want to make sure that everybody eventually gets it. So it's going to be one of these things where you have to work your way up and you have to get the course. And think of it like a professional organization. Like we are a group of AuxComm people, and we want to provide opportunity for people that have got the AuxComm training but don't have an outlet, for their training necessarily. And I've heard that across the central part of the country here. I've heard that from a lot of people. I took the AuxComm training, but we don't have an organized AuxComm group or whatever. This is something that, just like you would ARRL or any one of these professional type organizations.
Okay, that wasn't my question. That was Clayton's question.
That's fine.
And my question is, what is the management structure of AuxComm USA, and how many of them have completed the ICS 300 and 400 classes?
So we've got Billy, WX0NET, and we've got Lloyd, and they both have ICS 300. I've got ICS 300 and 400. We're trying to make sure that everybody at the management level does have that. And that's the management right now. So
I couldn't think of a harder way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish than by using the word AuxComm in the group's name, though.
Okay, that's a fair point, and we will take that point and we will talk about it. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
What you aspire to accomplish, I think everybody here understands and is empathetic to, but how it works in the real world, I think a lot of people are sort of confused about how you're ever going to fit into that without having the jurisdictional authority that's required for everybody else.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, does ITVRC, they don't necessarily have that in every state either, and they still deploy to multiple disasters. I mean, it's a very similar type of rollout is what they would do.
Yeah, there are some great groups that do support activities for type 1 teams. There's several of them, and they're all very enviable. But they do what they do really well, and it involves a lot of very expensive prep and setup. So what you're doing is brave, I guess I'd say.
Okay. Well, we're trying. And again, we are going to take what everybody says and all of the input, and we're going to, we're not just rigid. We're not going to ignore people that, give us reasonable feedback. So we'll do what we can to make it work. And we may have to change approach a little bit here and there. We may have to do some things, but, we're trying. I mean, again, too, you got to remember a lot of us are coming out of the state of Kansas, and we're coming from something that, just from a different area that a lot of people are, and at a different support level than what you might see in other states. So it's kind of tough, but we've got a few people coming in from other states now. And once we get that built out a little more, hopefully we'll get some more feedback from people that have been in this a little more. Because like I said, I'm not, I don't know everything, and I don't have the answer to everything. So it's going to take some time for us to determine what works best and what won't work and what will work in some of this.
Well, how do I say it? It's admirable in that it's not a registered trademark, but having join a group to accomplish something that is maybe not in the realm of what volunteers who want to volunteer, just to volunteer, can accomplish. They're the local, and how you think it's going to go further than local is really a mystery. I mean, I could see having a group that actually gets along with and knows how to support and do everything that the local authorities, emergency management agencies want of you. Why, that's downtown time. And that's what the amateur radio service, I think, has always had an aspiration for. But okay, I was a little shocked when I looked at what you put on there about AuxComm USA is doing or trying to do. So Godspeed, stay.
All right, let's pick up a couple more here. We'll go back to the chat stuff. Victor, you've had your hand up for quite a while. Go ahead.
You talked earlier about vulnerabilities, penetration from hackers or whatever, about what they're doing. Our outside influence, bad influences, do they have a history of trying to infiltrate disaster networks and corrupt the activities? Did that question come out right?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So at the last ITSL class I went to, actually, there was a handbook, and I don't have it in front of me, but basically a subversive level organization that was operating in Chicago that, and I think some of you probably heard about this, but when they had the riots or civil unrest there, was it 2021, 2020? There was a whole handbook they printed that talked about jamming public safety radios, how to do it, talked about how to communicate, without being tracked, using, radio, changing the frequencies, this and that. And it even got a little bit into how to destroy critical infrastructure. So there are definitely groups out there that have looked at this. And it's not been a major problem right now yet, but that doesn't mean it won't be. So it is definitely something that is on the radar from what I can tell from all these classes, and it could definitely happen.
Okay, Bruce, you had your hand up. Let's take you. We'll go back to the chat. KG6IYN. Go ahead and take it. Okay, we'll come back to Bruce. Barry, how are we doing in chat?
Well, Bruce, I was going to ask Bruce's question next in the chat.
Well, I've actually got a couple of others. I'm sorry, I was juggling audio devices.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm limited on bandwidth. That's why there's no video, Dan. The question that I really had for the presenter was an open-ended question. Do you really understand the gravity of what it is that you're promoting? And I'm saying that from a perspective that a lot of folks that joined the meeting tonight were probably expecting to hear something about AuxComm. So the naming convention, I'm sure, hooked a lot of people in. But what I'm really worried about is that you understand the gravity of what it is that you're trying to execute and trying to create. I'm always the optimist. I'm always for doing things that are going to help out the community. But we've got folks that are out there that have established things through AuxComm programs, through their ARES programs, through their regional and community programs. And now we've got the new kid on the block that's going to be knocking on doors, asking agencies if, hey, we can help you. We're here to go out and promote emergency communications, and all of that's great, except that there are already entrenched and successful programs that are out there that you might be displacing. And I'm also concerned more about the AuxComm name and how it's being represented, in that you might actually cause exactly what Dan was talking about, brand confusion when it comes to the served agencies. And this is a formula for how you poison the well for the ones that are successful out there and have been doing good for their community. So I'm hoping that you're recognizing the gravity of what you're undertaking. And I'm hoping that you really understand the dynamics, because this could have a ripple effect, not in a good way, but in a impactful way for other established folks that are out there.
I understand the concerns. And yeah, we never started this in a way that was going to intended to step on anybody's toes. We want to work with other agencies. We want to, we're trying to be a professional organization of AuxComm people. Much like you would if you joined the ARRL, or if you joined, I don't know, the Association of Old Crows or something like that. That's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be the networking and a way that some of the AuxComm agencies can get insurance requirements filled. That are some of our primary things. We would like to bring some people together from multiple places to where we could deploy, much like ITDRC does, but that again it's going to take some time to get that all done. By no means do we want to step on anybody's toes. And again, like I said, I'm the technical officer. I really thought tonight's conversation was going to be more along the lines of technical questions for disaster support, I guess. But it is a big undertaking. It is a professional level task, by professionals. And it's hard because we get told, I'm just going to be straight honest with you. We get different people with different concerns, and it's really difficult for us to decide where to, who's right and who's wrong, where to listen, this and that, what concerns are the most valid concerns. And, we talk to in the RecWIC groups and stuff all the time, and we get a lot of support, and we get pushed, one way or the other. And it is definitely a challenge. We have a lot of work to do, but I assure you, we don't want to step on anybody's toes. That's not what we came here to do. We came here to work with other agencies. We came here to, we started this in order to build out AuxComm in places that don't have it. That was our key requirement, because around here, especially in these smaller counties, we just don't have enough local volunteer emergency communication support. And we've got to draw outside the local level, that top down, bottom up approach that we're looking at. And we've received a lot of support on the top. On the bottom, we have not really. We've got some support on the bottom, but we just haven't really pushed that yet, because we've mainly been up here at the top level, with the meetings with the SWICs and FEMA and CISA. Again, I'm going to take everybody's concerns tonight. I'm going to present them back to the other board members, and we'll have a discussion about some of this. And we want to work with you. We're not trying to ruffle feathers here. We're trying to provide, a professional organization for AuxComm people, auxiliary communicators, whether that's ARES, Gracie's, AuxComm, any of it, any of these agencies. It could even be some of the non-amateur radio related communication support groups.
And I'm by no means suggesting that you're going to ruffle feathers.
Oh,
But I thought I heard you say earlier, at least once, that you're knocking on people's doors. You're trying to reach out through different agencies. You're trying to reach out well beyond what I would consider to be your initial, or at least regional boundaries that you had described. There are already successful programs in place. I'm not concerned that you're going to ruffle feathers or cause a problem with that or displace people. What I'm concerned about is that when folks go blindly knocking on doors and talking to anyone, because DHS and CISA have lots of folks at different ranks and different levels that'll talk to anybody about anything. And that may sound like you're getting encouragement to continue those dialogues with them, but the reality is when you cross over into territories and boundaries, you start knocking on the door in the state of California. Great, they've got a plan here too. We've got a million plans. The state hasn't even fully rationalized yet. And we've got our successful local programs. Not sure that reaching beyond your local boundaries would be where you want to start, and really extending beyond your span of control that you've already got or you're starting to build is probably the way to kick this off. I think hearing that you're working locally and really starting to get embedded, if you really do have a vacuum or a void for these types of services, would be where you'd be focusing your attention. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Thanks for your time.
Hey, no problem. I understand where you're coming from here. I get it. And we're not blindly knocking on doors. We are networking, and we are working with people and getting meetings with other people and building out the network. We're at the very ground floor of this. We incorporated in June. So some of the questions here and some of the concerns are valid for sure. And we're going to have to take these back, and we're going to have to think about them, and we're going to have to change our plans, based on some of this. And that's partially why we're trying to get some people in some of these states to give us input. Because if somebody comes in from a state agency and says, hey, we'd like to work with you, but we don't need your help, that's a whole different conversation. It's just, we don't want to, we're not out here to try to make this situation worse or take anything away from any of these other agencies, because if you've got a successful program going, by all means, that's not what we're trying to do. So.
Okay, Barry, how we doing in chat?
Sure. Couple of questions on background checks. One of the, how are the members' personal information protected against breaches or misuse?
So that is done through the background check agency. So we don't handle any of that. Basically, it goes to the background check agency's website. You put in your information, and they kind of give us a go, no go.
Okay. And the other comment was, at least I know in most states that I know, if the background check is not being processed by the official state law enforcement agency, it doesn't mean anything because it's non-existent.
That is definitely true. So when you go and have to do an actual state credentialing process, there may have to be another check. But we have to make sure that our members are, free and clear of any sort of major criminal history. So.
And someone also wanted to know, where was that? You said you're the technology officer. Who else is involved?
Billy Fanska, WX0NET, and Lloyd Colson, KC5FM are the other two primary officers.
Thank you. Let's see. Now let's see. And yeah, the ARL is not a professional organization, nor is the NRA. Is the Fraternal Organization of Amateur Radio Operators is to better the hobby.
Okay.
I understand there's a fine line defining professional. A lot of groups consider professionals as paid, and there are lots of volunteers that are also professionals. So it's a real fine line of defining who exactly is a professional. Now, someone wants to know if Jeremy DeWitt is a founding member of RoxComm USA.
Who's that?
I don't know, Jeremy DeWitt.
Don't know Jeremy DeWitt.
Obviously, he's not. Let's see.
Yeah, professional organization might not be the right word, but a group of, however you want to put it. I mean, professional may not be the exact right word here, but we're trying to be a group of like-minded people. How's that sound?
I think in the conversation you came across, we all know what you meant.
Okay.
Let me see, I'm getting down here. Let's see.
There are a lot of messages in chat.
I'm moving down. I'm almost down to the end.
Okay. Well, while we're doing this, Tyler, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't think anybody's trying to beat up you or anything. They're just voicing their concerns. They're talking.
No, that's fine.
From their local perspective. You may get some emails from some of the groups afterwards for discussion.
Yeah, this is good. Like I said, we're new. There's things we don't know. There are relationships in place we don't know about. There are things that are working that probably don't need to be changed by any means, and we don't want to change them if it's working, because like I said, it goes back to the same sort of thing with the communications. If you've got a functioning system that's working, we're not here to change that. We are here to provide a group of like-minded people a way to network and do some of the stuff that we're trained for. And there have been some people that have in certain states, especially here in the middle of the country, where there just hasn't been opportunity to volunteer because we don't have some of these organizations built out yet. So we're trying to help out with that.
Okay. Dan from California wanted to know where you can get the ITSL handbook. Because you mentioned that.
I would assume the ITSL, I think it's on the FEMA CommU page, but maybe not. I mean, I know I was given one when I took the class, but I would have thought it should be online. I don't know.
Okay, here's a person who might know, and he's got his hand up. JM, take it away.
So I'm not sure about the ITSL handbook being on online, but I would suspect it is if you're probably on the CISA website, if I had to make a guess there, but maybe also probably on the FEMA website. Everyone would be different for every state, or could be. That'd be something that you want to worry about. I guess, Tyler, I'm amazed that you were brave enough to jump into the middle of this pack of hyenas. To be honest with you, I expected you to lose your cool. Tell you the truth, I would have certainly. You weren't getting the kind of questions that you anticipated, and I think that you've done an excellent job of acquitting yourself of being a hothead here. I'm just real proud of you over that.
Well, thank you.
Now, I want you to know that I started out, I was in the very first CommL class that was in the state of Arkansas, which was about the second state that ever did one. By the way, I think Tennessee beat us out there. And so I had asked for an employment ladder for years. I've worked as a radio installer for the Forest Service just as a contractor. Because I was not an employee of the Forest Service, I was denied the possibility to go to a big fire. And that's exactly what you guys are doing, or trying to do, is to provide a ladder for people to go do a big thing. And I applaud you over that. I want you to know that I think you've got a tough row to hoe, but carry on, wayward son.
Thank you. And that's exactly it. Like, but you're, and it's been very hard. I've got training and I can't do anything with it. That's basically where I'm at right now in a little tiny county here in southeastern Kansas. They don't necessarily need a comm out. At least they think they don't need a comm out. They do need one. They think they don't. And it's one of those things where we've got to have a way up. And if this was all done on the government side for us, we'd step aside. But there, it just hasn't been done. It's one of those things where it almost feels like we'd be better off with a National Guard style commune force where you had people and they could, get deployed to a scene and leave their job for X amount of days, and you could pay directly instead of through the agency that served and all of that. But we chose to do it the way we're doing it. And that makes it really tough for some of these smaller agencies because they just have a real hard time with trying to understand, why do we need to send you to Texas or California? We need you here. Well, that's where it is a positive for everybody if I go and do a deployment somewhere, because I'm going to come back with more knowledge. But a lot of these smaller agencies don't know that knowledge is needed until things go really bad. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide that ladder to climb. And I thank you for understanding what we're trying to do, because I'm probably not the best person to explain some of this, because I like I said, thought we were going to be in more of a technical discussion here, but all right.
So the ITSL task book would probably be closer to being available on the NWCG, National Wildfire Coordinating Group. And I should have realized this because I'm sitting on the committee that's developing the ITSL task book. So I don't think that that's available on FEMA or CC, either one yet. So
I think he asked for a handbook, which I think you may be talking about, like the curriculum guide.
He was looking for the PTB.
Oh, okay.
I was looking for the curricula and the handbook.
Yeah, I don't think it's been developed yet, Dan. Not all together.
There was somebody posted an announcement about a New York State ITSL class, and my comment and response was, for even a moderately computer literate person to understand the nuances and the ins and outs of everything that CISA and National Institute of Standards and Technology does, documenting and sorting and analyzing and helping the public and then helping the government avoid the vulnerabilities that arise every few seconds on the internet. Just knowing you could skim that in 2 or 3 days in a class, and all that would do is let everybody know how deep the kimchi is.
I'm just sitting here thinking, one of the things, the American Red Cross has got a system that the amateurs could take a note or two from. When they have a disaster, they take their volunteers from any of their chapters that got the qualified volunteers. I'm in Boise, Idaho. We don't have a lot of disasters, but I got deployed to San Francisco earthquake by the Red Cross because they needed what I had to give them. And so that kind of a ladder, I think, is what you're looking for, so that everybody, all the disasters are local, but all local places don't have disasters, and they got all the same training. And we can take the people who are investing their time, money, and effort into this training and make that available on a global scale so that we can deploy where we're needed. That would be an ideal way of doing it.
The biggest thing we've seen, and the biggest thing that I've heard from all the reps and all the classes and all the exercises and things I've been to, is that everything kind of ends at a state line a lot of times. And it's hard to go across it. I'm on a county that borders Missouri, and we're one county from the Oklahoma line, and it's tough. It's tough on the law enforcement and the fire side. We do mutual aid in Missouri all the time, and it gets tough on occasion. We've got things we have to work on, and then on the volunteer side, it's even worse because Missouri does things totally different than Kansas does on a lot of this stuff, and Yet, there's a lot of tiny little counties out there that would need people. And if we have this database of people that are local that can go, and I know there's Chasm out there already, and it's a great database. I don't know how well it tells you if people are really active and how driven they are to do some of this stuff. It just kind of tells you that they took the course. Of course, I don't maintain that, so I can't speak fully for it. But, we're trying to get not just credentials as far as, you took a class and you completed a task book, but, there's always somebody that's good at something. You've got somebody out there and, hey, we had a problem where somebody drove off with the command post and ripped all the connectors off. Well, there's always somebody that's really good at putting the connectors on, or there's somebody that's really good at, the organizational administrative side of it. And all of those things we are going to try to characterize somewhat and get into a system to where, we can put it out there and in our group chat and say, hey, there's this opportunity to deploy here. It needs this skill, and this skill. And, we think, would you like to go? And it's a yes or no kind of thing. So I know like on the ITDRC side, it's a little more, they've got a nice system in place for deployment, and we're trying to do something similar to that, where we can be called upon and we can go and do what we need to do. Because like you said, all disasters are local. And I know we have a lot of people out here that are ready to go, but they don't have anywhere to go. So that's been a big issue.
And we've got to guard against self-deployment, though. When you do cross, you're doing it as part of a recognized national agency. If you do it as part of a county, you have to be part of a recognized group for the county to look at you. Going across state lines, hopefully you have a good enough working relationship with counties with the state to be able to get you deployment orders. So with EMAX, you can cross the state line. But if you just go across state lines as a non-recognized group, the states are not going to be, and the counties and the police departments are not going to be happy with you. And they will put you in jail if you try to deploy during a disaster, if there was a disaster. So you're going to be very, very, very careful.
Oh yeah, we're not self-deploying. That's never going to happen. That we know that. We saw what happened when that sort of thing went down with the Joplin tornado. There were 10,000 people that showed up that shouldn't have been there. And so they came from all corners of everywhere. We're not doing that. That's not going to happen. That is right there, number one thing in our SOP. Never self-deploy. So it's up to the leadership here for us to come up with these agreements and these working groups, and whether that is going through different states support functions with their EMAX, or if it's going through a directly at a higher level, something like what ITDRC tends to do, where they are well known enough that agencies are calling upon them across the country to deploy. See, this is what gets complicated a little bit too. It's like, you've got AuxComm in your NIMS function, but you've also got, this restoration capability that's out there that a lot of hams would be able to help out with, and a lot of people on the professional side, and they don't necessarily overlap. So that's something that we're going to have to figure out, and you're going to, but you don't have to worry about self-deployment. If that happens, they're done. We're not doing that. That is, we know better.
I think what you're saying is a problem that at the national level, FEMA or whatever, they should be and probably are looking at, because they need reliable resources. They just don't know who the reliable sources are. So they need to have an avenue or a way of doing that. Maybe I'm just throwing this out, working at the regional level, the region of each one, to get into participate with their activities and such. You got to be known. You got to be somebody they trust. And when Tyler's name comes up, oh, we know him, no problem, type of a thing. Because during a disaster, it's not a time we want to, self-deploy type of a thing. To avoid that, we have to have a means to make our efforts widely known. And it just seems like cutting it up in regions is the logical way of doing it, but then I'm not the one doing this. But I really applaud what you're doing. What you're trying to do is address a problem that many of us have. Like I say, I'm from Idaho. If we got a campfire out of control, we got a disaster. So, it's not the same as we have in other places, but we do the same training. And there's times we need more people with that training in a particular location, and that we don't know who's available. We need them. Where are they? That is, it's a situation that I think needs to be addressed.
And we've had the most success so far working with the FEMA regional groups, FEMA and CISA both, and the different regional HQs. And that's exactly what we hear. We want to use AuxComm and we want to use it more, but we don't know who to call in many states, and we don't know who to call to get additional assets into certain events and incidents. So it's networking is going to be the biggest thing I think that we can provide. Getting the name out there and getting in to do some of this stuff. And like you said, if we can get some of the people that are in smaller areas that do things on a smaller scale out to bigger incidents, so they can see what's happening and get the real world training. Because one of these classes, 4-day class, you do learn some stuff in there. They're great classes, but unless you get out there and do it on a regular basis, it's really hard to stay proficient at some of this stuff. And I wish there was a better way that, you could just go sign up on a list to go be deployed somewhere. If that was already out there, if there was a national level core of people to do these deployments, we wouldn't be needed. But we know other agencies are doing, and I know I keep bringing up ITDRC, but they kind of are like the shining light that stands out from everybody else when it comes to this. It's once your name is known and once you've got a good response, we're not looking to step on anybody's toes. There's really no reason why some other state's AuxComm agency couldn't get extra support from us. And just to call on another state and break through the state bounds. I realize it's a Herculean task, and it's going to be like moving a mountain, and we're all going to have to try and push harder against that mountain, I guess. But there's challenges. There's big time challenges with this. But if nobody tries, nothing ever gets done. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
I think we have on this group, on this particular Zoom thing, a lot of heavies in the and other areas here. The problem you're addressing is a known one. Just having a list of people who've taken courses, that by itself cut it. There's personalities involved, venting and so forth, but there needs to be a mechanism. And it's possible that you started something here that will open up a lot of doors and take things that needs to be done.
Okay, well, that's the point. Like, I know I had asked some questions in a couple of CommL groups. Like, I have the training. What can I do to get out there and do some deployments? And I think the best answer was, join the Civil Air Patrol. There really wasn't much of a, what about your agency that you work for? Well, the agency that I work for, they don't understand. This is not, we've got 3 county commissioners. This is a tiny little place. They don't understand even what a CommL does, and I don't know if they have the time of day. And I'm not like harping on them by any means. It's just not in their purview. Like, this is not something that happens on a regular basis in southeastern Kansas. Yet I'd like to get out there and do that. But can I up and move my entire family to a big city and go to work for an emergency management agency to do that? Probably not. And there's 1,000 people in that same role easily. And we've got to have some way to utilize the knowledge, the resources, the training, and just years of experience. A lot of these people have been, doing this stuff for a county or a city or state for years, but they have not been able to get out to the bigger areas to do the work.
I keep going back in my head And FEMA keeps at the regional level of FEMA. You're right. A lot of these people don't know or even care about all this kind of stuff until they all of a sudden they have to, and they have to call somebody. And if somebody in FEMA or professional organization, as you were describing there, that says we need more of this or that, they're the ones where they are that needs to have this list of prioritized list. Yes, we can call upon this guy in Arkansas, this guy in Kansas, wherever, because they've got, like the Red Cross does. Red Cross has got tremendous resources, but they're located all over the place. And they go look at their master list, who they got, and what's qualified and for a particular situation, and they say, hey, can you come to this disaster? Need something similar to that, so that the people that need the people have the resources they need, and they go to a source to get it that knows those resources are legit. So it all has to come together, but it has to be at a national level, as far as I can see. And FEMA's it's the one best geared for it, as far as my point. Yeah, you want to jump in here on this? JM? Come off guard.
Hey, I was leaning the wrong direction there, Dan. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to see how this plays out. It's going to be a matter of how much stamina they've got, because they're going to run up against 50 roadblocks, and I know that it's going to be tough on that kind of stuff. One of the biggest problems they're going to have is if they get recognized in one state, then and they're termed a resource, and maybe FEMA types them at some point that they, type 1, type 2, type 3 kind of team. Then if that happens at that point, then another state could EMAC them, and that's when they would gain some gravitas. Otherwise, they're a contractor, and I don't see that as being something that's going to happen very often. And the problem is that most disasters don't get elevated to the point where you would want to bring in ham radio operators. Even hurricanes don't generally do that. Hurricane Katrina, we did send some guys down to that part of the world, but it just doesn't happen very often. And that was a heartbreaking thing for me to figure out, was that because I wanted to go on big fire, and I thought that we could be useful and fairly cheap for the responding agencies, and it just didn't work. It hadn't worked yet.
I think that's because the mechanism was not in place. They were calling on fire departments, all kinds of places, the volunteers they needed. Lloyd, you got your hand up. Let's give you a chance and throw you into the mix. Go ahead, Lloyd.
All righty.
Please show
try
me
to get my camera going. Let's see if I can get it going. There it is. There I am. Hey guys. Hey, Tyler, I want to change the subject a little bit, get back on something maybe not so deep and maybe positive. Tell us about the presidential award that the organization received. What were the circumstances you guys receiving that? That kind of raised, everybody, well, I won't say everybody, a lot of people, it raised your organization to a higher level. We saw that.
So first of all, our primary principals, Billy and Lloyd, are both veterans, and so we are, they're the owners of the actual nonprofit. So we are a veteran-owned company, and so, but basically, Billy has been tabulating all of this time we spend on the nets and help and all the different things that we've done, and we sent that in, and lo and behold, we won an award, Presidential Service Award for giving back to the citizens of the United States, and it's kind of a big deal. I'm pretty proud that to be a part of that. The official ceremony should be coming up here at some point. I don't think we've got a date yet. They're working on the date, but yeah, it's it's pretty neat to put all that time and effort in to do something as a volunteer and actually be rewarded for it. It felt pretty good. I would say.
Congratulations on that.
Mhm.
Thanks.
We're approaching into almost 2 hours on this. I talked to Tyler earlier and he was worried about not being able to have a presentation that goes through our time. Obviously,
Yep.
open up a area of concern and interest for a lot of people. We probably should wrap this up unless somebody's got some more to offer. I think this won't stop here. I think there's going to be another conversation amongst other areas. I don't know what region you're in, but I would reach out to your region, the FEMA region, talk to the guys there and see what you can do from that level. That's just, some of the things I would do. But I think you got a good thing there and you got a lot of good advice here. So at any rate, are there any more questions or comments out there? Okay, I don't hear anybody. I don't see anybody. Barry?
Good in chat.
Okay, let's wrap this up. I'm sure this is not going to be the end of it. We need to do some more work on this. So keep in touch there, Tyler, and where this goes.
Yeah, I appreciate it all. I definitely appreciate the feedback. I know that there's concerns. I know there's roadblocks. I know that all this stuff's happening. We're doing the best we can. This is some of the things may not be the way you would do it. It may not be the way others would do it. I get it. But we're starting. We're at the ground floor with this, and we're going to make changes. We're going to try to adapt and overcome. That's what we can do. So I appreciate you allowing us on here and invite. And I'm glad it all went pretty well, except for a little technical hitch, but we worked through it. So
I think it came off pretty good. He did very well. He stood up to some verbal abuse, I guess you might want to say, in a minor scale. He did very well, as Dan said. I'm very pleased, and I'm hoping to hear more about this. If your group progresses as you go on, get a hold of us, and we'll come together with another one of these and see if we can share what you're doing with others and help that along.
okay, we will do. And I appreciate everybody's feedback. I don't take any of this stuff personally. I know this is a world of people that speak directly, and I'm used to it. So it's not a problem. I'm not offended or upset or anything. It's fine. And I understand the criticisms. I understand the complications with the name. But part of the name too, you got to understand, just want to address this real quick at the end, is that, we're trying to fill an AuxComm role. And if we just have a random name, it gets kind of confusing because it can get confusing both ways. But we're looking at all that, and we'll do what we can to adapt and overcome and hopefully provide a service for everybody here that is an emergency communicator. So
all righty.
thank you.
I hope I'll give you my best wishes. I know more as it goes forward. I think you've got an honorable role there you're filling there. Okay, unless we hear from anybody else, I'm going to pull the plug.